You should already understand that audit planning is the first step in the audit process, where auditors decide who, what, why, and when they are auditing. But this is just the beginning. There is so much more you need to know for your exam. At Stickmart HQ, the internal audit team is in the planning phase. And one of the first things they must do is gather information and identify high risk areas. And the best way to do this is to understand what value the business provides and how it provides it. The auditors already know that Stickmart is a shop that sells everyday goods to customers, and that the value it provides is convenience. Customers can walk in, find what they need, and purchase it quickly. But they need to understand how that value is provided. And the best way to do this is to look at and compare the systems, tools, and processes. For Stickmart, there are several systems. One that handles payments from customers, one that logs and tracks inventory, and another that serves promotions to customers' apps. The auditors can now conduct what we call a risk assessment. There is a video later in the course dedicated to this topic, so for the moment, just know that a risk assessment lets us rate the risk of something on a scale of high, medium, or low. For the systems that the auditors found, they determined that the payment system has a high level of risk, the inventory system has a medium level of risk, and the promotion system has a low risk. They can then use this risk rating to decide which system to audit. And in case it isn't obvious, they will choose the payment system as it has the most associated risk with it. And that's what CISA wants you to understand. We should always plan audits based on risk. If we had a cloning machine, we could create thousands of auditors and audit everything in the business. The people in the business would probably hate us because they would be surrounded by auditors asking thousands of questions. But since there is no cloning machine, we only have a small amount of resources, so we need to focus on the high risk areas. And another piece of information we must use to identify those high risk areas are legal regulations, as they are mandatory requirements by law. We will have fines and reputational damage if we are not compliant. For your exam, you don't need to know the regulations in detail. Just understand that they must be considered during the audit planning phase because they are associated with risk. Next, the auditors need to decide exactly what they are going to be auditing by setting the scope and objectives. The audit scope defines the boundaries of the audit. It answers and defines what will be looked at and what won't be looked at. This part is really important because systems and processes can be made up of dozens of components. And these components can live in multiple places with multiple versions, making it even more complicated. So we need to be really specific about what we are looking at. The internal auditors at Stickmart have decided their scope is component A at store number 512, which now means they can set the audit objectives, which describes what the audit is trying to achieve. And their objective is to assess the controls that help prevent the payment system from going down, because that was the greatest risk identified during the risk assessment. By setting the scope and objectives, it means important business risks won't be missed and it's clear to the auditee what is being audited and why. Now the audit scope and objective has been set, the auditors can use this to decide what resources to allocate to this audit. When CISA says resources, they're being intentionally broad. It does not mean just one thing. It covers the amount of money to spend on the audit, the amount of time needed, and, most importantly, which people. There's a lot of ways we can figure out the answer to each of these questions, but the one which matters most for your exam is people. Specifically, the most important consideration is to make sure that all auditors are objective in all matters related to the audit. What this means is that an auditor who is involved with developing or designing a system cannot be chosen to audit that system. Otherwise, they might miss things or try to hide mistakes they made in the past. For your exam, risk-based audit planning is a really important concept, and that's why it has already come up in 2 videos and you've only just started the course. In fact, there's another video on it later in the course too, so don't worry if you don't fully understand it just yet. For now, just focus on understanding that in planning, we start by gathering information and identifying high-risk areas first, which includes considering legal regulations. Then we use that risk-based information to define the audit objective and scope. And finally, we allocate resources, making sure auditors are objective and have no conflicts of interest.